I always love the story that in sort of the famous house that Facebook started in Palo Alto, that like Facebook was not the only company they were working on, right? There was also that peer-to-peer file sharing thing, right? They're working in that house, that subsequent summer, and I find it very interesting that sort of, call it 6 months later, it was kind of not obvious that like Facebook was the thing to be working on, right? As you're kind of pursuing multiple ideas in parallel, and sort of similarly. With Stripe, even once we'd built this little prototype that we thought held some promise or whatever, it wasn't like obviously a great idea or anything, right? Anyway, I guess the point being, we didn't know if we should raise money for Stripe or not because we're in school. Was this going to be a kind of a serious thing? And so what we actually went and did was we came out to the Bay Area that subsequent summer. This was for us in the summer of 2010, and just decided to kind of work on Stripe as our kind of bootstrapped internship, sort of self-internship. Especially for Stripe, given that we were kind of our target audience was other startups, other entrepreneurs, other founders, and so on. Sort of being in the Bay Area felt like a pretty obvious thing to do. And then over the course of that summer, basically, and again, I think there's kind of maybe a lesson here where I think a lot of really good ideas really don't seem particularly great or big upfront. Again, certainly speaking from personal experience, Stripe did not. But over the course of working on it that summer and sort of thinking about it and so on, we kind of came to shift from sort of thinking about it merely as this nice little tool for developers that kind of makes their lives easier initially, which is kind of what we started out with, to kind of realizing that, well, when you sort of survey the broader landscape, it's not just that it sort of sucks for developers to have to sort of integrate payments initially into their website or service or whatever, but that like the whole edifice is broken, right? 2% at the time, 2% of all consumer spending took place on the internet. And it's like, why is it so low? Why is it so insanely difficult for any company to do anything that touches online transactions? When we talked to a mid-sized company or a large company, it's like, what's your experience of just like dealing with business and the internet? And they would spend half an hour telling us about sort of the markets they couldn't serve and their fraud challenges and the things they couldn't integrate. And just, we came to appreciate that sort of what we thought was kind of this little pond was actually kind of this much larger ocean.